We talked a lot today about how much the OpenSearch project has grown over the last year. Now it's time to take a look ahead. Here to take you through the OpenSearch Roadmap and share more about the next release, the foggy future, and everything in between, please welcome OpenSearch Senior Software Development Manager, Charlotte Henkle.
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm one of the senior engineering managers on OpenSearch. You might remember me from blog posts about, hey, what do we have to do to fork OpenSearch? Or more likely, forum posts about, hey, I think this release is going to be a couple days late. Or maybe one of my other forum posts about, hey, it's going to be a couple days late. So I do a lot of that, but in addition, I'm going to talk to you today about the roadmap. So I have the best spot and the worst spot on the schedule. I can tell you about the exciting things that are coming up, but I also know that I am the last thing between you and the happy hour. So I promise I'm gonna go quick. I have about 15 minutes worth of stuff to go through. Stay with me and we'll go. Work for you guys? Yeah. All right. So the things I'm gonna cover are why projecting a roadmap for OpenSearch is particularly hard for all the right reasons. I'm going to talk about some of the themes on the roadmap for 2023, and I'm going to take a quick look at some of the upcoming projects that I'm particularly excited about, SEgrep, GUST, and extensibility. So, if you've been in software for a while, you may have seen something like this before. It's called a cone of uncertainty. And the idea is that at the beginning of a project, you have so many things you don't know about the end of it that it's very hard to predict what direction you're going to wind up in, right? You can see this in hurricanes, like in this map, where you start in one point, but it gets wider at the end and you're not sure where you're going to land. But this is true of every software project. So I said that OpenSearch was particularly difficult. Why is that? Because OpenSearch has a community shared roadmap. So one of the best parts about my job is when I open GitHub, or I get an email, or I just hear from somebody who's really excited about problem that they have or an itch that they want to scratch in the software that is something that I haven't really thought about before. And so all of a sudden we have a new item on the roadmap. And that's great. I love it. Incredibly exciting, but makes it hard to predict. But what I can talk about are some of the themes that I see. And these are themes that have come up for us from the community and from just talking to folks about using OpenSearch and what they want to see next. So if you've used OpenSearch before, this list of themes probably isn't a big surprise to you. For example, cost, performance, and reliability are all things that came up in the keynotes. People are very, very interested to make sure that we have a low-cost option that is the most performant and most reliable. So you'll see us starting to put more and more projects out that enhance all those areas. Another area that I think we really want to see growth in next year is ease of use. And that's not just making the product easier, but also things like documentation and migrations. How do we make sure that for somebody who's trying to use OpenSearch, either for the first time or whether they have an enormous cluster that they're working with, how can we make that as easy as possible? Log analytics is one of our primary use cases, and you'll see us putting more and more features in there because it's a great space and there's a lot of enthusiasm for it. Improving extensibility is such an important topic. I'm going to cover it in a bit on a couple more slides, and of course machine learning, which we just had some great presentations on. So the first thing that I want to talk about is segment replication. So if you were able to attend Nick's great talk this morning, he talked a little bit about what a segment is and what a document is. Today OpenSearch uses document replication, and in document replication, whenever there is an operation that affects the index, it gets forwarded off to the primary, and the primary executes it. And then that primary forwards it to all of its secondaries. And those secondaries then go ahead and replicates go ahead and re-execute it. And that's pretty intensive for the CPU and for memory. In segment replication, we're only copying over Lucene segments. And so we aren't redoing all of the work again and again. And we're able to do that because of Lucene's segment strategy. So, okay, so what? That's great. What's really nice about this is that it reduces CPU and memory usage, and it also improves performance. So I have a slide I wanted to share with you. There are a couple things about it I want to call your attention to. The first is that CPU utilization decreased from 95% to 47%. And again, because we weren't having to rerun those operations on each shard. But SEgrep was also faster, and it was finishing in about 22 minutes with docrep running at about 40 minutes for the same operations. Now, if you're sitting, like look around your table, if you're sitting next to someone who's getting paler and paler and more scared as I'm talking, congratulations, you've just met Mark Handalian, who provided me with this slide. He was emphatic that I caveat this with lots of information about how this will be impacted by your workload and your cluster topology, and that is and your hardware, and that is completely true. But the good news is we're totally done with docreps, or with SEgrep, so great, right? No. There's still a lot we want to do on SEgrep. It was released in 2.3 behind one of those experimental flags that Nick mentioned, but it's definitely not done, and we would love to work with you on it. There are things we want to do about integration with remote store that I'm going to talk about in a second, figuring out how to spread primaries across the cluster to avoid hot nodes, and handling rolling restarts gracefully. But the thing that we would really love for you to see, since it is already in 2.3, is to turn that feature flag on and run some more loads against it and tell us what you're seeing. Is it useful for your use cases? And let us see what your results are. At the end of my presentation, I will have a slide that has more information about how to find the work that's being done here so that you can contact all the teams that are working on this. Okay, I want to talk about GUST, which stands for Grand Unified Storage Theory. It actually nobody calls it that but me, but I'm trying to make it a thing. So if you're in this room, you can help me make it a thing. It's really called the Storage Roadmap. And what it's trying to do is, there are a lot of changes that we see are possible in storage, building on some of the work that was done on UltraWarm that could actually improve significantly OpenSearch. So, if, again, to reference Nick's talk, all of the hosts for OpenSearch get behind a logical cluster. But if you want to scale that up, regardless of why you're scaling it up, you can only add hosts. So what we want to do ultimately is be able to decouple storage from compute and then decouple indexing from search, so that as your use cases change and are different, you're able to scale more effectively. And I mentioned that there was a storage roadmap. There are multiple steps to this storage roadmap. Phase 1, adding remote storage options for improved durability, also went out on 2.3 under an experimental flag. So I would strongly encourage you to go get 2.3 and kick the tires on it and see how it works for your use cases. Searchable snapshots is being built right now, and we would, again, love to work with you on this. It's a fascinating engineering problem. And then 3 through 5, we haven't even started yet. And we're still trying to make sure that we've wrapped our head around all of the edge cases and how that might look. So this is a great opportunity to jump in and help us with this and work with us on it, shoulder to shoulder. The next thing I want to talk about is improving extensibility. So it is true that today you can write plugins to extend the functionality of OpenSearch, which is great, and we have some fabulous plugins, some of which we've talked about today. But there are problems with plugins. For example, the versions are really tightly coupled. You may have noticed when we release a new version of OpenSearch, we have to bump the versions across all the plugins and release them together in a bundle. And that's very frustrating, right? We shouldn't have to do that. There's also no really well-defined interfaces. Nick mentioned that we do a best effort to label some of them public or experimental, but we don't enforce that. And we've run into trouble with people making assumptions about how things we're implementing never changing, and then actually having them change underneath them. And finally, there's no security isolation. So all of the different plugins actually run within the same process as your engine, which means you can inadvertently impact your engine with a plugin that's running amok. So how do we aim to solve that? First is that we want to decouple the versions by making them more aware, something akin to package management. We want to have well-defined SDKs and APIs so that it's not a mystery what you should be using or how you should be using it. And we want to have a secure sandbox. So you're running your process, you're running your extensions outside of the same process. Again, this is kind of a so what? Why would we do this? The idea is that we want to make it as easy as possible for people to extend the function of OpenSearch. So if you've got something that's a use case that you're passionate about, it's easy to write, easy to extend, easy to install, and you're confident that it's secure to run these extensions. And ultimately, we want to get to the point where we're able to build a catalog of extensions where you can start the open search engine and then hot swap in different extensions to test them out and figure out what is working best for you, regardless of the source of where they're coming from, that you can trust that they're safe to run. Okay, so where are we on extensions? We built a proof of concept early in the summer just to make sure that to do some benchmarking and see what the performance was. We did see performance impact running out of process, but I think that's something that we can bring down over time, and I can throw you to the issue where we talk more about it. It's about 8 to 11%. But right now, we're building out anomaly detection, which is a current existing plugin, to see how it will work as an extension. And there is a feature branch where all this work is being done, and we would, again, love to see you and love to work with you on it. So is that it? Is that everything we're doing? Absolutely not even close. I talked a little bit about observability, having some amazing work being done. You've heard people talking about machine learning. I haven't talked at all about playgrounds, which is our new way for you to be able to just test out OpenSearch. I haven't talked about migrations very much. I haven't talked about the work being done in the clients. I haven't talked about all of the work that our automation team has been doing so that we can get to the goal of being able to release OpenSearch with a single click. There's so much interesting stuff that's happening. I would invite you to take a look at the roadmap. Again, there's a link at the end. And if there's something that you're interested in, reach out. We want to work with you. And if something that's not on the roadmap that you're fascinated with and interesting with, by the way, geospatial, I forgot to mention as well. Again, reach out because it's probably something we want to add to our roadmap. Again, here are some of the projects I've mentioned: segment replication, GUST, extensibility. The last thing I want to say is many thanks to you, the community. It is the best part of what I do every day, and I love engineering. So getting to work with the community to build things, I have the best job in the world, I think. So thank you very much. As I said, 15 minutes on the nose. Let's go to the happy hour.